All right. I'm ready to go. All right, we'll go ahead and get started here on our next session. We have two presentations in this section. They're both on wildfire response from two different perspectives. First, we have with CARB, Joseph McCormick, and then following that, we'll have Lillian Tercios with the Northern Sonoma District. We're going to just save our questions for both of them to the end. Please welcome Joseph.
Good morning. Joseph McCormick, California Research Board Incident Air Monitoring Section. I'm going to talk to you about wildfire and incident air monitoring response and coordination. So my group, whenever we go on these wildfires, we stay in contact with our partners. We got the Department of Forestry, Forest Service, air districts, CAL FIRE. Sometimes we work with the public health officials. And to keep ourselves in touch with all these wildfires, there's two main web pages that I look at personally. I stay with the InstaWeb, which tells us all of our federal wildfires, provides us information on containment dates, start dates, lets us know kind of other information. Sometimes they provide information on road closures. And the second one would be CAL FIRE incidents pages, which are mainly the wildfires that are on state property. So once we know where the fires are, how do we know where the smoke is going? We use the Blue Sky model, which is an EPA product. And it's a predictive modeling service, and it's a model of models. It estimates PM concentration, and it gives about a 3-day outlook. Okay? Another group that we have is, we call it CARPA, the California Air Response Planning Alliance. It's composed of EPA, California Air Resources Board, air districts, and public health officials. And we all got together and created this document here. It's still in working draft, but it describes the best practices for coordinating a smoke response in California. It's very short. It's only about 10 pages long, but it has examples and templates, contact information, and kind of describes the agency's roles and duties when it comes to wildfire response. So coordinating. How do we coordinate during these wildfire seasons? Besides keeping in touch with our email and our phones, there's a 1300 call. It's every day, Monday through Friday, Saturday and Sunday. And what that group, it's the meteorological group, and they provide you weather forecasts for the upcoming days. My group is in charge of this 1400 call here, and it's more of your monitoring call. We all discuss where our equipment goes, where it's going to be in the next couple days. We talk about transport. We talk about where we should set up our equipment. Another thing that's really new is we got these air resource advisors. Each one of them is usually assigned to a specific fire. They come and join our call. They talk to the air districts. They talk to us. They let us know if they're going to do any backburning on that specific fire, where the transport's going to go, if they're going to, like I said, backburning, where the flare-ups are happening, if fires are going to cross the lines, and they're just a great source of information. So we have a model that my group goes by. So we have data, and we convert that data into our message, and then we get that message to the audience. So let's go over data. Just to recap, that first picture up there, I took that one at high and palm. And it's not dust and it's not fog. That's 3,000 PM, micrograms per cubic meter. High and Palm's only about a 15 population town, but they put an incident camp there. So all those firefighters out there are actually breathing in that PM, day and night, without respirators. Bottom left, I took that one. It's more of an incident monitoring. This gentleman passed away and his home was bought on an estate sale. Well, it turns out he was a miner and he had dynamite in his house. So instead of removing the explosives, they ended up burning down the home instead. Next one, I'm just at Mills Creek Fire in Hoopa. This bottom right corner, I'm over here in at a Valero Benicia because they had a flare-up about a couple years ago, and we helped monitor for PM and assisting with Bay Area AQMD. So we set up an air monitoring network when we do monitor for all these different types of incidents. Of course, you have your air monitoring stations. Then we also, my group, we set up portable samplers. We also, that are measured in near real time, so about they send up data about every hour. Versus the mobile equipment, we have data every minute or every second or so. And the new thing we're trying to get into is these advanced sensors. So in this example, we were at the Escondido bomb house, 2011, 2012, I believe. And you got your air monitoring station. Unfortunately, it was upwind of the incident, which still provides data, and all data is good data, even if it doesn't show anything. But so we come in, we set up those portable monitors. But like I mentioned, they give you near real-time data, so hourly data. That's only good usually for incidents that last several hours. But sometimes we need to make split-second decisions. That's where we come in with those mobile monitors, which can give me that data that is about a minute. Next, we move into messaging. So I got all this data, but it's just numbers, right? Unless I can put it on something, which is why we use the air quality index, right? And then we take our data, we put it on a nice either bar graph, bar chart. That way, at least we can represent, because we don't want to tell the public, you know, here you got 300 PM. We want to show them, hey, you got green for good. You got your levels of hazardous in red, just to make it simpler for them to understand. So the way my group sends out our data, we usually give it straight to the EPA, Forest Service, Park Service, or we give it to the air districts, and we allow them to disseminate that information out to the public. We have 3 websites that my group uses when we find all this information. The first one is AirSys. All of our data is sent via AirSys, via satellite, to this webpage. This is more our administrative page. I can look at it at a glance and know the PM concentration. I can tell whether there's an alarm on the equipment, so I know if the instrument's going out. I can tell just by looking at this when the equipment's set up, when it last reported, if the power went out. This is where I go every day to look at all my information. Everyone knows about Air Now. This is where we usually send the public to look at data information. I find it's much more simple, right? Because simple is better, especially when it comes to letting the public know, you know, the fire location, give them smoke plumes, let them know some little incident information. Plus, it also still has all the permanent air monitoring stations and those temporary air monitoring stations. If you haven't seen this one, this is Wildfire. This is a Forest Service product. And this one, it does everything that Air Now does, but it also includes daily trends. It has you can download the QA/QC data, and it's probably the better data source. This is the one that my group uses the most, besides AirSys. It's more intuitive. You can select multiple sites, multiple monitors, and you can see all of them together at a glance. As I mentioned, the new thing we're getting into are these smoke sensors. And with these smoke sensors, we find that right now, our current network, because all the portable monitors are back in my warehouse. So we have a lot of gaps where we can't see if the wildfire happens since there's nothing set up. These smoke sensors, we figured they're inexpensive and that we can use them to complement our existing network. So since they're relatively cheap, what happens is we went with the purple air sensor. We got about 450 of them. I distribute about 15 to each air district. And the purpose was to help fill in those gaps, to help protect those sensitive receptors, your schools, your elderly, high population areas. And we know that they're not FEM or FRM units. The idea, though, is normally the sensor will be placed in location. We get kind of like a baseline value, and then we check the map, and we can see the different, if we see like I guess a flow level change, in which case it normally goes from green to, say, red. We would have either air district or ourselves would go do that investigation and determine, okay, maybe we need to go put in a more robust instrument. But this kind of allows us to figure out, okay, where do we need to put our equipment? And the reason we chose this purple air sensor is because we did Dr. Ahmed Mahadi, my section, did a sensor evaluation with multiple instruments. And we found that this one best trended with the instruments that we use when we do our wildfire smoke monitoring. So now that we got all of our information, so we convert it into a message. How do we get this to the public? You can use multimedia, you know, what, Twitter, Facebook. You can go to your town hall meetings if you're an air district or public health official. My group uses the California Smoke Blog. On the California Smoke Blog, if you have not seen it, it's an air district product out of Placer County. But they allow us to have access to it. They give everyone access to it, so you can go ahead and post. People post air quality advisories, weather forecasts. And if you remember on the 1400 call, we have those air resource advisors that work directly on those fires. And every day they do an air quality advisory report. And they post it onto this webpage. That way the public can see general information. You can see things like, they'll show you the map of the fire. They're going to show you where all the monitors are located. They're going to show you the map of where the actual fire is, where the burnouts are going. They can tell you where that smoke plume is going and let you know those air quality advisory reports. This is the best way for, at least in terms of my section, this is the best way to relay information to the public. Okay. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact my supervisor, Charles Pearson.
Hello, everyone. I'm representing the mighty Northern Sonoma County Air Pollution Control District, and I'm here to talk about our Camp Wildfire responses and a little bit about the 2017 wildfires that we had.
I turned it off.
Oh, sorry about that. How about that? No? How about now? Sorry, guys. Yeah, go ahead.
Getting to know you.
So every person who prepares is one less person who panics in a crisis. This was definitely one big thing that we had to learn during the wildfires. So in 2017, we woke up 6 a.m., wildfires just blaring through our county and our district. We had to rush through, get out, evacuate. It was pretty hectic. This is something we weren't expecting at all. And even recently with the camp wildfires, that was something that we didn't really expect either. So in 2017, the wildfires affected us directly. They were right in our district, in our county, and we had about close to 9,000 structures damaged. We had the smoke impact. We also had, of course, our data impacted for about 8 days, and our max hourly concentration for our PM10 was about 356, so that's significantly high. So in 2018, we learned that just because the wildfires aren't in our county or district doesn't mean they're not gonna affect us. So we had local impacts. They were limited to smoke, but we also had 13 days of our data affected. And our max hourly concentration for our BAM, again, we only monitored for PM10 was 403. So a little background on the campfire and where we're located. So we're like the little hat for the Bay Area. We share an MSA with the Bay Area, and we're also right underneath Mendocino County, and our office is in Healdsburg. So as you can see, the wildfires were all the way. They were about 100 miles away from us, and you can just see how quickly the smoke just kind of came through and inundated us. So as far as district concerns and challenges, again, we're a small district. We're comprised of 6 people total. I am monitoring. I do all of the PM runs, ozone, data, anything you can think of, I do. So as far as our concerns and challenges, we had several. So we had to think about our equipment and coverage. Is the equipment that we have good enough to capture the data that we need? Is our network, is our existing network good enough to cover the jurisdiction that we have? As far as data capture, which data sources that are available to us capture this data most accurately, and how do we explain this to the public? Also, why is there so much data, and why are we capturing so much of it? We have so much equipment and so much information coming to us. How do we figure out what is the right information, and how do we interpret this? And of course, again, small district, we also have to figure out how do we answer the people's questions? How do we get this information, collect it, and give it to the people in a way they can understand? And also, as far as policies and guidelines, we need to figure out what kind of policies and guidelines we need to protect the public health. So This is in Healdsburg. This is right behind our office. If you've ever been, it's a very small town. As you can tell, this was on the day of the event. At 11:52, I was heading out to run a quick errand. We were getting calls in the morning like, hey guys, we think that you guys have some bad burners in your area, because we still do ag burning in our region, right? So we're getting all these calls like, no, it's not possible. And then we get this, right? Not even 15 minutes later, this smoke just piles on. So as far as the tools that we had available to us, of course, we had our existing PM10 network. We also monitored for ozone. We all relied on Bay Area's PM2.5 in Sebastopol. And of course, we had the purple air sensors that CARB sent out to us, and we also used CARB's EBAMs that they were able to deploy. So as you can tell, we had really good coverage overall for this data capture. We had, again, the PM10.25. We deployed 8 purple air sensors across our district, and we did 7 outdoor and 1 indoor. We also had the 3 EBAMs, 1 in Santa Rosa, which is, again, in Bay Area, and then, of course, in Guerneville and Healdsburg. And those were located right next to our PM10 monitors. So as far as our existing network, our existing network has been there for 20 years. We know it well. I go out there, I do all the work. I know my machines, I know my data, I know what I'm getting, you know. They cover our district really well. We have one close to the border near Mendocino. Healdsburg is pretty central. And of course in Guerneville, which is our coastal region. And of course, AirVision. It allows us to access our data in near real time. As far as limitations, we wanted to use PM2.5 because that's what everyone was seeing during this event. PM10 was a limiting factor for us just because, again, we are ag, and PM10 has sufficed up until this point. And as far as the data that we collect is pretty limited to the public. We have our data available online, but it's not in real time, and also PM10. So people see PM2.5, they see PM10. There's a big difference in that. And AirNow also doesn't have access to any of our data. So as far as Purple Air, they're easy to deploy, they're low cost, there's a user-friendly interface that we've all seen, and again, your real-time readings. So as far as limitations, we see that dust causes drift over time, aerosols can cause higher counts, smoke compositions can cause higher counts as well, higher or lower counts. And it creates a large data set. You know, it updates every 20 seconds, so you have all this information just getting collected, and it's massive to look through. So as far as the CARB deploy EBAMs, so there's no cost to the district. It's really easy to set up as far as options. They can ship it out to you, or they can even come out and set it up for you. You can also access the data remotely, which is really cool, right? It's really easy to look at and kind of get. So again, the limitations are that the EBAMs aren't available to you until after the event has started. So you have to figure out how to get these EBAMs out in time, and also where to put them out. Another big issue was that we didn't have any data before the event started. So like Joe said before, you kind of rely on the Purple Air to let you know when the event starts and where you can put them, but at the same instance, you don't have the data available beforehand. So, Cloverdale, my little hometown. This is a typical fall day in Cloverdale, and again, the event started, or you can see the smoke rolling in around 11:50, 11:40. And by 12:35, we're out here deploying Purple Airs, and this is what we have to work through. You know, this is what we see. And it pretty much stayed like this the entire time. So data collection and analysis. So we gathered data from 4 different sources, from the Bay Area, Wildfire, Purple Air, and AirVision. We wanted to find consistency in comparison, like I mentioned before, so we stuck with the Bay Area's 2.5 monitor. And we kind of decided to, you know, as for messaging purposes, to not use our PM10. We also wanted to look at the time, location, and sources. We had a lot of questions that we wanted to ask and get answered during this event. You know, in 2017, we didn't have that luxury, as it just kind of happened. So in 2018, we had a little bit of a better sense of what we wanted to get accomplished. So how well do the Purple Airs do during wildfires? Can we compare the indoor versus outdoor values of these purple airs? So is PM10 still a relevant source for us? And was there enough data from the EBAMs deployed to make a comparison between Bay Areas and the data that we were collecting in our district? And also, how can we communicate this information to decision makers and the public? So as far as the BAM and EBAM, we felt comfortable enough using Bay Area's data for 2.5, because if you look and see, the EBAMs that were deployed in our district were tracking really well with Bay Area's EBAM in Santa Rosa and Sebastopol BAM that they already had established. So we went ahead and made that comparison, and like I said, we felt comfortable enough using that data. So as far as the purple air, you can tell that the purple air is trending really well with the 2.5. However, it's significantly higher. So I mean, it's catching the spikes. It's doing exactly what it's meant to do as far as tracking, I guess, but just so much higher. So having said that, we decided that we wanted to look at indoor versus outdoor use. We had a purple air right outside of our office, and we also put one right inside. So they were like one upstairs, one downstairs kind of thing. So again, you can see that they're trending really well with one another. They're catching the spikes. And here, I have a pointer. I don't know how to use it. So here you can actually tell that something happened during that event, right? That caused those numbers to kind of even out. So what we did was we were trying to see if there were any interventions that we can do or use during the event to kind of protect our own personal health during this event, right? So what we did was we introduced air purifiers in the office. We have an older building, lets in so much stuff. And the air purifier pretty much evened out our air quality during this event. And of course, we have our natural abatement. The rain came in after a while to kind of end this whole scenario. So as far as addressing public concern, we had to talk to people by phone and email. We also did social media postings. We did smoke advisories. We had guidance documents and handouts. We also had our resources on our website that were right in the front. We always had updates. We had how to read the data. So in this little section here, you can tell during the smoke trends how to use the online resources, because again, people were seeing our PM10 data and they were saying, why is this so low? Why is your AQI lower than purple airs or air now or air fire? So we had to figure out how to explain that to the public. And of course, our big thing was the Sonoma County Office of Education meeting. We acted as advisors during this meeting. So we found out through social media that the county was using purple airs as their decision maker. And as we know, purple airs are trending so much higher than what we're used to seeing, right? Or what we know to be true. So they were using their AQI as 275. And of course, everyone was in a panic. They're saying, well, Napa and Bay Area, they're using air now and they're using 150. Why are you guys using 275? So as the air district, we come in and we played advisors. We kind of explained to them what was going on and what we were seeing with the purple airs. And of course, there were a lot of big players at this meeting. They ended up deciding to reconsider using the purple airs as their baseline. Again, 275, you see people are kind of in a panic. So of course, we were used as a technical resource, and still at the end of the meeting, they weren't sure what to use as an appropriate AQI threshold. They were also unsure of whether to shelter in place or cancel school. Also, we offered our help in interpreting data in the future. So things to consider for your districts. I know we had a lot of considerations even after this event of how to keep dealing with this, since this is obviously going to be a reoccurring factor. Connect with other agencies, your local agencies. I mean, we had to connect with Bay Area. We talked to Mendocino. We had to make sure we were in constant contact with everyone around us, and as well as CARB. Is your network coverage appropriate for what you want to do? Like, what kind of data do you want to capture during these events? What kind of questions does your district have or want to figure out? Do you have the appropriate amount of staff? I was out there by myself kind of trying to get this figured out. So as far as data, how valid is your data? Are you using the appropriate methods that the state has already established to ensure that your data is good? As far as staff safety, I was kind of dumb enough to leave my mask at the office, so I was out there, exposing myself to hours and hours on end of smoke. So, and as well as public involvement, we've had instances where parents have snuck into schools with personal monitors, asking, why are the numbers so high in this school? Why can't you cancel? We want to figure out how much of this technology and citizen science, how much we want to involve ourselves with that and, interact with the public. So, any comments or questions for Joe or I?
Questions, anybody?
After the Tubbs fire and the Wine Country fires of 2017 and last year's impacts from 2018 fires, could you, at the risk of repeating yourself, summarize what Northern Sonoma County's preparedness is at this stage or moving forward for this year are for your monitoring, especially for your monitoring network?
Of course. So actually, I did have a slide in there, but for time purposes, I removed it. Moving forward, we've decided that we were going to start establishing a 2.5 network. We're still going to keep our PM10 network, but we're going to add 2.5, and we also have an EBAM. We're going to purchase an additional EBAM, and I believe that answers the question.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other questions? All right, well, Lillian and Joseph, thank you so much.